Okay, as you can see here, I've already drilled the holes. I'll be going on to show you how I went about that to make sure that they were nice and square. We'll go on to that next. But I have the dovetail, I have the holes, and I have the slot in the end that are going to take the end of the pivoting arms. So that's the story so far. I've actually run a file around some of the edges. I haven't done any finishing on it, but I've just tidied it up so I don't cut myself, so to speak. Anyway, next procedure is going to be showing you the drilling of the two sets of holes, drilling and reaming. They're M6 reamed holes right through. And then we'll move on to blocking up the two arms that are going to carry the knurling wheels. So with my slot being 13.5 deep, I've decided to put my centre point of my pins halfway, which is 6 3/4 mil back. So I've drawn a line there, and I'm going to go the same amount down from the top and up from the bottom, which would be 6 3/4 for the centre line of the pivots for the moving jaws on the knurler. So yeah, I'm going to set up now. I'll think of a way. I could just put them on my drilling machine and drill them, but let's see if we can come up with something different. But I'm looking for a hole size. I believe I'm going to think about 6 mil reamed, perhaps. I'll have a think about it. Just to show, the sticky pin I use today, I do have a wobbler, or a wibbler, or a centre finder, edge finder, what are we going to call it? I've always just called it a wobbler. I'll just wind in nearly closer. Whoop, there we go. It's a 2.5 mil ball on that one. So just come out the way. So I want to wind in 1.25. That's there. I'll just set a 0. And what was my dimension? 6.75. Okay. And I wind in 6.75. Give myself a 0. And that's my distance in from the edge sorted. From this edge in. Now I'm going to, I've set this up square to the headstock before I put the chuck in, and I've got the capability here. I know that I'm against my dovetails, which are square to the world, so if I raise this up, I haven't got any form of adjustment on it yet, but if I just raise it up, I'm going to use a centre finder or a sticky pin probably to pick up the crosshairs there of my my hole. I mean, these centres aren't critical, but I'm going to pick it up with my sticky pin, and then I'm going to drill and ream it out at 6 mil. I don't know how well that picks up on camera, but I got the tip of my wobble pin running through, and I'm smack on the crosshairs. So I'm going to lock my cross slide now. I'll actually show. I don't show this very often, but I've got a cross slide lock there. Let's talk about the cross slide lock. Basically, I've got an aluminium block. It's got an M6, I think, thread in it, and in the back it's bored out, and it's got a slug of aluminium, a slug of brass in the back. It's utilising the 2 bolts at the bottom, which were for the travelling steady, so it's bolted solid onto the carriage. And if I tighten up that screw, I don't go mad on it, just nip it up. It pushes the brass slug against this space on the cross slide and locks the cross slide pretty rigid indeed. I don't have to put a great deal of force on it, but of course with it having the brass slug, I think you might be able to just see the brass slug down the back. It doesn't mark or score my cross slide at all. But yeah, it's quite effective and does the job. So yeah, first job. I've already drilled it, I didn't turn the camera on. Centre drill that bottom hole, or what is going to be the bottom hole. And now I think we'll put the drill up in the chuck, and then I've got a chuck in reamer, and we'll drill and ream it 6 mil. Right, so there's the 5 mil drill. Bit of jollop on the end. Oh, it's a 5.1. I'm just starting with a 5.1. And I'm going to drill down through both faces. when I was talking about a reamer, I did say I've got a chucking reamer. I thought about it afterwards and thought, I don't know how well that came out, but I better, yes, we won't have language. Let's just get rid of that swarf because it's getting on my nerves. So yeah, this 5.1 drill. Drilling out with this one. Once this one's done, I'll probably go with a 5.5, and then I'm going to finish it off with a 5.9 before I put the 6mm reamer in. So I'll get on with that and bring you back when we get to the reamer. So final job. Nice and slowly. Try and do a nice constant feed. That's the reamer in. It's through the burst face, and again I've got cutting compound on here. That's the second face. I'll just bring it up to the top of the reamer. I do find there's a bit of wear on the end of this particular one. Hardly noticed it, but there is a little curls of swarf that it took out. So I think I'll put a little countersink on the top of there now. If I can find my countersinking bit. That'll do me. That's probably out of shot, this. Let me stick it out in the chuck a bit. I'll do the other side by hand after. Just a little. That'll do. In fact, I better be careful. Might just. Yeah, I just made sure it didn't burr over the hole. Okay, so that's that one done. I'll have to hurdy-gurdy it up, flick it upside down on here, and wind it all in that way and come sort of drilling it this side. So, yeah, I won't show you that. You can see the general idea of what I've been doing. Line it up from the edge, blah-de-blah, and whack a hole through. So my plan B, I've got my milling plate up again, the one I mount my milling slide on, and I can simply, because it had, oh, didn't show you, did I? Piece of 10mm stud into a 10mm hole. It lines up in a funny place to normal, but I'm not too worried about that. So I can now mount that back on there, something similar to before, square it up, it'll go way low enough for me to drill a hole in the top. Happy days. Yeah, so we managed to drill the top one in exactly the same way as the bottom one. You know, no matter how often I do it, when I got the chuck in the headstock with this quick release chuck, I always go to turn it the wrong way to start with. It's force of habit with it being on the tailstock end. When it's on the headstock end, it just feels weird. Anyway, that's a 5.9, and you get the picture. I'll put the 6mm reamer in next. I've been thinking again. Oh dear God. Anyway, after the success of clamping a workpiece solid onto the cross light, I'm thinking if I could bolt my vise solid onto that plate. I know this vise holds things rock solid, no problem with the vise itself. I could clamp the vise onto the base plate, and that gives me the versatility of up, down, left, right, all sorts in the vise here for milling. Especially when I'm just blocking up, because I can set a set of parallels and I can adjust this way and fly cut, you know, that sort of idea. So I've got a bit of this. I can make a set of clamps with some jacking screws, that sort of thing. Happy days. So I think I'll get on and make that. My 6.8 drill is really blunt. Could do with a bench grinder. Now where did I put my bench grinder? Oh yeah. There it is. The little contraptions you have to come up with when you're working in a very confined space, so that tools are available for use, but they're out of the way when you're not using them. Anyway, I'm going to grind this drill. The proof of the pudding is in the eating, as they say. Gauge plate, or O1. We call it gauge plate when you buy it in black stock. Straight in into a centre drill hole. No worries, happy days, you managed to sharpen that one first time. If you're new to the channel here, you'll see I've got under my drilling table, to take the flex out of it, this device. And it's basically got a base, a little rubber O-ring so that they snap together, and it's got a lid with an adjustable screw, again an O-ring, and obviously the middle piece, of which I have another one, and they all fit together to make an adjustable jack or support, should we call it. Bit of rust on the end of there. Anyway, I can adjust it up and down. I can fit it underneath my table. I'll just do that. Just whack it underneath my table off the base plate. Adjust the screw up to the desired spot, and it stops the table flexing down as I'm drilling. I mean, it's only a little tiny drilling machine, but it does the job nicely. And obviously with the variables, I can put no spacer, or the 2 spacers, or, you know, basically have just the base on the top and screw the screw right down, and it'll go from the very lowest position of my drill table right up to the highest if I'm using a little center drill or something like that. So yeah, useful little tool, simple to make. It's just little bores, little registers, little O-ring to keep them together, hole down the middle to take the adjustment screw. It's got a steel top with a thread in. I didn't want to make an aluminium piece with a thread if it's been adjusted all the time. But yeah, I mean, it's all there. Happy days. If you've got holes in a small part, why not drill the holes when you've still got a big piece of bar to hang on to? And why not do up the chuck? Oh dear, there you go. That's what happens when you're filming and trying to do a job at the same time. You lose track. Or it might be just me losing the plot. So I'll chop it off now. Well, I think that ought to do it. A couple of little clamps, adjustable jacks so I can use them at different heights for other things. A shorter one here and the long one, clamps it down onto my what's-it, and this one's shorter so that it avoids the moving jaw retaining block. So yeah, I now have the means to clamp my vise directly to the saddle of the lathe. Well, here we are. We've clocked up the vise. Let me just nip that, see if I change things. So usual practice, circular rod on the moving jaw, push back against the face I just machined, and I'll then know when I machine this space that these 2 corners are 90 degrees to each other. And then I'll just work my way back round like that, tapping back against the parallel, and we should have a nice square block to start with before we machine it down to size. Okay, so that was the first face I machined. That's against fixed jaw. On the roller, I've just machined face number 1, and that's face number 2, and I now know that that corner is square, so I'll rotate it now clockwise 90 degrees to put the square corner down here, hit it back against the parallel. I know that face is going to be square. I'll leave the roller in again and machine this face here, which is number 3. Well, that's all 4 faces done now. Actually quite pleased with that finish. I mean, the fly cutting on here, it's come out beautiful. So, very pleased about that. So, I've got 4.7mm to come off this face, to drop it down to 20mm. It's stuck out about 5.3, so I'm lucky on my choice of parallel behind. So I'm going to keep machining it now until it measures up at my 20mm. And then I'll turn it 90 degrees and do the same, and I'll do the same on the other arm. So yeah, you've seen the principle of fly cutting. I won't show any more of that. I will skim the ends afterwards in the same sort of manner. It'll be stuck out the chuck a bit, but not a problem. And we'll end up with 2 60mm long 20mm square blocks. Do you ever get days when every single piece of swarf that comes off the job wants to jump down the front of your shirt and burn you? Well, this is one of mine. But I won't be beaten. Sorted. Look, it was still biting me. Now we got him beat. Can't see what I'm doing, like, but we got it beat. It's not biting me anymore. I got a reading on my DRO when I get to 47. I've gone right across the face. Wind it back. I'm taking 10 thou or 1/4mm, nearest damn it, at the time. I tried 1/2 mil, but the swarf was, it could cope with it, but the swarf was jumping up and I had to go a lot slower, so happy days. Onwards and upwards. I don't feel like I actually achieved much today, guys, although I suppose with the little clamps and whatever, we did have a little bonus project thrown in. Lovely finish on the fly cutting of these blocks. It came out really, really nice. I'm quite pleased about that. So yeah, where are we now? We've got the main holder. Obviously it needs tidying up with radiuses and what have you, with the 2 M6 dowel holes through. And we've got the 20x20x60 EN8 fingers, or arms, all blocked up. And we now have a more effective way of holding stuff more rigidly, shall we say, when I'm milling on the lathe. Well, there we are, guys. That's the end of this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And we definitely see you all very soon. Cheers now.